Well, welcome everyone to one of our Wednesdays at Noon's webinars from the Drexel University Libraries. These are just informal short presentations to help inform the campus about some of the resources that we have available. What I'm going to be focusing on today is Pivot, which is primarily a database of funding opportunities. And now we've done a couple of other webinars on Pivot in the last year and a half or so. But for today's, I'm going to focus specifically on how it can be used by graduate students who might be looking for funding for their dissertation research, funding to help them travel to a conference, or opportunities to present a paper at a conference. All of these are available through Pivot. So I'm going to start sharing my screen to you, and we're going to take a look at it and see what it does and how to use it. So bear with me, this always feels a little bit nerve-wracking. Is this going to work? Okay. The page that you're looking at right now is one of our library guides. And this one is specifically focused on funding. If you wanted to find it, if you follow the library guide link on the library homepage, and then over the right under special topics, there's a link for funding and research. And this guide is one of the ones listed there. You can also, of course, find Pivot in our list of databases from the library homepage. So jumping into Pivot, let's see what it looks like. For anyone who was around long enough, Pivot actually grew out of something called Community of Science that the libraries were subscribed to maybe 15 or 20 years ago or more. So in one form or another, it's been around for a long time. To start out using Pivot, the first thing that you want to do is create your own account. Because as with a lot of other database systems, although you authenticate to use it through the library site and using your Drexel One login, creating your own account lets you save searches and customize what you're looking at. When you create your own account, you'll select Drexel from the list of member institutions and use your Drexel email address to get started. Now, once you have your own account set up, Pivot is going to take that account information and see if it matches with an already existing profile. You may be surprised to find that Pivot already has a profile for you. They establish them essentially by screen scraping university websites. So once you've set up your account, Pivot is going to show you a list of profiles that might be a match for you. And if there is one there, all you have to do is claim it. If there isn't a profile already there for you, there's a link to create a profile, and then you just follow the steps, filling in the information about who you are, what your role is at the university, your research interests. If you have an ORCID ID set up, you can link your pivot profile to ORCID. And then one of the important parts is putting in keywords that describe your research work. And the more keywords you put in, the more accurately Pivot can make funding recommendations for you. So I'm already logged into my account. I'm going to open up my profile quickly. Now, most of the information here came right out of our library website. I've added a couple of keywords in here, but I could certainly add more that would flesh out what I'm getting, make it more complete. As you notice, based on my affiliations and my keywords, Pivot is giving me 143 funding opportunity matches. Now, again, if I put more keywords in there, these matches would probably be more accurate and better targeted to what I actually do. So any questions about setting up profiles? Okay, let's go on to the different ways to look for funding. Now, when you go to the funding interface, the funding search options for Pivot, the first method that it gives you to find funding is this browse by keyword, which frankly is pretty and it's kind of fun, but maybe not especially useful. Each of the different colors here, as you mouse over them, as you can see, is a different discipline. And they start out very broad, and then as you move to the outer rings, they get to narrower and narrower subject areas. So if we started in education, we can look along here through the different bands and say, okay, there's $4.18 billion in funding opportunities for educational administration and policy. So I can click on that to open it up and start looking at the opportunities that are available. Now, of course, I could scroll through this list of 311 choices, which is not a very productive use of my time. What I probably want to do is look over here on the left where there are filters to help me narrow down the choices that I'm looking for. So one of the first things that I might want to look at is the different types of funding that are available. Am I looking for program or curriculum development funding? Now, if I click on more here, I can see better opportunities that might work for me. So if I'm a graduate student looking for funding, I'm probably interested in maybe scholarship funding, maybe fellowships, and maybe dissertation or thesis funding. So now I've got 48 results that I can look at. I can also, if I want to narrow this down a little bit further, come down here to applicant types and say, I'm looking for funding that's available to individuals who are graduate students or predoctoral students. So then I can scan through the 24 opportunities that are listed. Now this one up here that has this bright yellow limited flag. Oh, excuse me. This is Clarence. He always likes to come up and visit, only when I'm talking to people. So limited submission essentially means that they accept limited numbers of applications from a particular institution. So the institution is expected to coordinate those applications before they go in, which means that if you're interested in that, you probably want to talk to the research administrator at your particular school, or the Office of Research Administration for the university. For each one of the opportunities listed, though, when you open it up, it gives you information about the funder, their website for this specific funding opportunity, so that you can go find more information about it. The country of the funder. Now that was something that we didn't look at, and we could have limited our results to funding opportunities specifically in the United States. So let's go back and take a look and see if there's. So we'll look specifically at US funding now. So here's a dissertation fellowship program, although this might be limited to students at Marquette University. The keyword browsing is only one of the ways for finding funding opportunities. What's often more effective is to use the search option. And there's a very simple search here, but there's also an advanced search that's often a better way to go. Now this looks like, you know, a lot of other database interfaces where you can put in keyword terms about what you're interested in, combine them in different ways. But what's particularly useful for the advanced search is that down below this area where you can put in keywords, there are options to filter your search both by including and excluding different facets. So again, we can go and say that we want to include funding for conferences, for dissertations, fellowships. Let's see, what else did we want? Scholarships. So we're including all of these. Maybe down in the options for excluding. If, for example, I were a student at Drexel, but not a US citizen, I could come down here and exclude any funding opportunities that would require me to be a student, to be a US citizen. Now, you notice when I do that, it automatically checks these options underneath, which basically say that it's going to rule out anything that specifically requires that I'm a citizen, but it will include anything that isn't restricted or doesn't specify citizenship. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that you configure your search. So I'm going to come up here and say that I'm a student in the public health area, because those are the people I work with the most. And my research interests are in healthcare for immigrants or migrants. So I'm going to specify those as the terms that I'm looking for. And down here, I've specified that I'm looking for things to help support my graduate studies and my dissertation work. And that perhaps I'm not a student, so I'm going to exclude those. And then let's see what we get. So I have 4 options here. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look to me as though any of these are US specific. So just so that we can see better examples, I'm going to go back and take out the exclusion that we put in down here. Okay, so we've cleared that. But we still want we still have our funding type specified. So now we've got some more options to look at. And the reason I wanted to come back where we would have more options is that there's a couple of different things I can do from here. I can do more filtering over on the left if I want to. I can save my search strategy here so that if nothing came up right now, I can get a weekly email message that's going to give me new or updated opportunities that match this search. And of course, I can also go through and look at individual opportunities. And if there are ones that I'm particularly interested in, I can track them, which basically means that Pivot will alert me to when deadlines are coming up, when sort of new releases are happening. It says this is repeated once a year, so it will remind me every year. And I can do that either for individual opportunities or going back to my results. If I pick a number of them that might be interesting to me, I can track all of them. I can export them, which, I can send them out to a Word document or to an Excel spreadsheet if I want to. I could share them. I can send them out by email to people who I think might be interested in them. Now, one of the things that I can do once I've tracked a number of opportunities, if I go back to the home site for Pivot, just the home icon up here, here's a list of all of my tracked opportunities. And among all of the other things that I can do with these, I can actually send them to my Outlook calendar. And what that means is that any deadlines that are identified will go right onto my Outlook calendar, because I don't know about anybody else, but if it isn't on my Outlook calendar, it doesn't exist. That's the only way that I keep track of my universe. So very quickly, there's all of that you can do with funding, but you can do very similar things looking for conferences. Now, there aren't nearly as many of these in the database, but if I wanted to look for conferences in education, I'm actually surprised that I don't see education as one of the options here. But I can certainly search for those opportunities. And it's showing me not just conferences, but special issues of journals in that field that are soliciting for paper submissions. And from the conference list, of course, I can sort it by when the deadline is coming up. I probably want to look at things that have deadlines 60 days out so that I have enough time to actually prepare something. But I can also specify what countries I'm looking for those conferences. So maybe I specifically want to find higher education conferences in France, hoping that maybe someday we'll actually be able to travel to places. And as you can see, for each of these, it's giving you abstract submission dates, manuscript submission deadlines. And of course, if you open them up, there's more details about the conference. So that's Pivot in a nutshell. It's actually very simple to use. One recommendation that I would use, either searching for funding or for conferences, is recognizing that, the database is small compared to the literature databases that we're accustomed to using. So I would contradict the advice that I usually give in searching for literature and say, don't be too specific, or rather search specific, but also search broad. The example I've always used for this is if you were doing your research on diamondback terrapins, turtles, You may want to search for that just in case there is a very, very niche funding opportunity. But you probably also want to search for marine biology as a broader topic, because the funding opportunities may not list things quite as specifically as what you're working on. So think of your area of research, but also, broaden it out to a wider spectrum to see areas that it might fit into. And as always with Pivot or any of the other resources that we offer, if you're running into any difficulties using it, don't hesitate to ask us for help. So questions? No? All right. As with our other webinars, we will be posting a recording of this on our library YouTube channel. And if you just Google Drexel Libraries YouTube, you'll find it. And you'll find videos of all of our past webinars there as well. So thank you for coming today, and look forward to helping you through the libraries. Thank you.